So, hi, and welcome again to the day two for the HR training. So, like yesterday, we considered the introduction to the HR training. Please always refer to the manual while we proceed with the training. And if you do have questions, please put it down. Yesterday, we were unable to take the questions. If you do have questions from yesterday's class, please ensure to keep that close by so we can take them all together later in today's session. Okay, so I'll just proceed with the training. Please, if you do, you can always let me know if the audio is if you can hear me. You can just type in the section, that is the comment section, that you can hear me. So I would like to be carried along to ensure that everyone can hear me. Please, if you can hear me, kindly type in the comment section. Let me know that you can hear me. All right, so I'll just go ahead with um, the training for today. So today we're going to be considering HR planning and as well as job analysis, job description, job specification, and job design. So these are the key basics that we are going to be considering today. So let's just go right ahead into it while we proceed. Okay, so now that said, human resource planning. So in under human resource planning, we're going to be discussing about human resource planning itself and the steps to planning, then the importance of objectives and types of planning, then corporate planning and human resource planning process. Okay, so that's what exactly is human resource planning. So, like I said earlier, please, if you do have questions, just keep your jotter close by, take notes of the questions. At the end of the day, I would like to take all the questions together. Okay, so now I will say that human resource planning is practically the activity of deciding the future human resources, that the future need of human resources in relation to the right number and the type of people required for each job within with the right training as well as the motivation for work at the right time and place in an organization. Now, if I will put that together or in summary, so we'll say that human resource planning is about getting right the number of people that are required, the type of people that are required, right? The type of labor that is required, the type of people, and in the right number. Then do they have the adequate training? That's the right type of training or the adequate level of training that is required. Then the motivation also that is required. We're talking about compensation, talking about um, the um, the working condition. All this together, they're also part of it. Then we say they're at the right time and also in the right place in the organization. So that is human resource planning. So in a nutshell, a further explanation will say that human resource planning is about ensuring that the workforce that is required are in the right number and they have the right training, the right talent, the right capacity. They are properly motivated and adequate, not just properly, adequately motivated. Then also we have them at the right time. So we're not just it's not like the wrong timing. They have them at the right time and the right place of the organization. So another explanation to human resource planning would be that is more like a projection of need of manpower need for an organization. That is like projecting into the future. Let's say by December 2025 or by December 2026 or by second quarter or first quarter 2026, we will be needing this or we'll need that. So, for instance, the position that will require to increase their manpower by January 2026 have already mapped that out and begun the journey immediately to ensure that the manpower is readily available by January 2026. So they're not just going to sit and wait until January 2026 before they start out. So that's where human resource planning comes in. So human resource planning ensures that the organization foresees the need and engages that need actively to ensure that the need is that human resource need is met. So that is that. So in a nutshell, human resource planning will definitely enable the management to have the right number of people, right, and the right number and the kind of people that is required in the right for the right role and at the right time. Okay, so now that said, let's take on some notable definitions, like that of Coleman. It defines human resource planning as the process of determining manpower requirements and the means of meeting those requirements in order to carry out the integrated plans of the organization. So Coleman is saying that human resource planning is just a process of determining the required manpower, right? The required manpower and the requirements for such manpower and the means also to getting those manpower. So Coleman is just taking into consideration the requirements, the requirement of the manpower as well as the required manpower, then the means of getting it. So that's for Coleman because he believes that with that the manpower can be fully integrated into what the organization wants them to do so for them. That's what wants that's the human resource to do for based on its objective. Now, let's begin to consider the various importance of human resource planning. Why is it even important in the first place? Yes, you might say that it's important because when we plan, when we don't plan, we plan to fail. But when we plan adequately, we succeed, right? So, but there is more to human resource planning. Let's get that a grip of that to understand why human resource planning is adequately important in an organization. So, it improves productivity and aids the organization to achieve its objective. So, for the organization to achieve its objective, it needs to properly plan for its human resources. It needs to ensure that the right number of people are required for the job that it has. Now, take for instance that it is a factory, and this factory produces, let's say, over uh, 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 1,000 cartons, 1,000 cartons of noodles, right? 1,000 cartons, not packs, 1,000 cartons of noodles per hour. So now, and we require packers, right? We require packers or the floor guys who are going to be moving and stacking those packs. So now, what would happen is that based on the number of cartons that is being produced per hour, so say what is the rate at which each person can move this carton and stack it to where the crane can carry it, right? In 1 hour, how many can one person stack in the that is stacked properly so that the crane can come and lift it up and move it to the location where that's can properly pack them up. So now we say, okay, if um, one person can adequately load let's say 200 in an hour. So 200 cartons, they can lift 200 cartons and the crane can go like up to 5 times. So they will load 50, 50, 50 up to 5 times. That's up to 4 times, right? So and the crane can go 4 times so to go and pack. So once they load them in the rack, so the crane can now move the rack of 50 each time it goes. So if there's four each person can do per hour. Now, it means that adequate the workforce, the workforce for the that floor for that factory floor will be 5 people will be required. Five floor men will be required to help, or 5 packers will be required to stack those cartons per hour. That's 200 cartons per hour because the machine is producing 1,000 per hour. So by that, we have calculated adequately and known what we require for that job function, right? So that now, take for instance that the HR does not do that proper calculation and say, okay, just one person or two people is just what we need to do that. So now, what we're going to have is that we're going to have excess of cartons keep um, pouring out from the machines. So, and we will have the people overworked. We just have just 2 people. So it means that each of them is going to be loading 500 cartons in an hour. So if they cannot, that meaning that they're going to create 10 stacks per hour, so that the 10 stacks of so that the crane can move. Now, if they load 10, if the normal that they're supposed to load is 4 per hour for proper productivity and efficiency, and they're loading. So it means that and it starts by 9 a.m. before they even work for, let's say, 3 hours, they'll be exhausted and they will not be able to meet up because the whole place will be filled. If the normal rate is at 200 and they are required to now move 500, there's going to be an issue. So it means there's going to be an overflow of cartons from the machine, and in no time, everywhere will be so messed up, and the factory floor will be full of unpacked and unkept goods. So before you know, it begins to play out on the machine and rest. So when there's the staff number are when the people are understaffed or the workplace is understaffed, that's how it begins to impact back to the organization. Now, it also is important why that's one of the importance of making these calculations is we don't have redundancy. So we don't say, okay, if the average standard time to packing this thing is 200, that's it 200 for each person per hour, and we say, okay, no, um, yeah, there are more people. Let's just bring in more people. Just then um, we now bring in say we bring in 10 instead of the 5 that we require. So it was 5 to 200, 200 times 5 give us the 1,000 that the machine produces per hour. So now if we now have 10 persons, right? So it means that we're splitting the job into 100 each person per hour. So by having 100 each person per hour, it means that at the end of the day, we'll have enough time for people to be redundant. So if in 30 minutes they will be done packing what they are packing, and the next thing you have people playing around in the factory area, or people gossiping, or people just listening or carrying pressing phones or being distracted because they are not properly engaged within the time. So there's always a downside to these things. So that's why it's important to have the adequate. So you will work with the factory manager to ascertain the required number of people that would work effectively and efficiently on the factory floor. Okay, that's just a practical example that we have here. Another example is, let's say, the sales, right? Still, okay, still in the same industry that we're talking about now, sales. We have sales people, and we have, let's say, since we're producing 1,000 per hour, and if the factory is the one that runs 24 hours per day, it means that we're going to be having 24,000 cartons produced per day. And in a month, multiply that 24,000, we're going to be having 24,000 times 30, right? On a monthly basis. So now, take for instance that we require, let's say we require 30 sales, that is 30 sales people, right? So each person is allotted that's the production for each day, which is 24,000. So a target of 24,000 is given to each person to deliver in. So now, if we look at these things, okay, so now yours to build relationship that will help with the distribution of this. Now let's say we don't have more like a proper distribution network where we just go and drop them. So we are saying, okay, let's build up a distribution network, right? So that we can drive this properly. We have a we have a direct to market. We're not using distributors now. I think that is even much better now. So we have a direct to market instead of using the distributors. We have a direct to market. So if we require 30 people to move this 24,000 cartons on a monthly basis, right? We've seen that this is something that is feasible. And with the auction says, no, we cannot be able to cater to 30 people. 15 people can do it now. At least let them do the work of 2 people. We merge it into one and let them do it. So if we merge the job of 2 people, I say okay, it means that we are doubling the target, which will now become 48,000, right? So each person now has 48,000 cartons to move out to the market. So now, because we're not using a distributor model, because if we're using a distributor model, of course, the distribution, this thing begins to go to the distribution. But we're just trying to use the manpower model so we can understand when it comes to planning here. Okay, so now with that, at the end of the day, if there's a shortage in it, it begins to impact on the performance of the people. And what we'll have is a backlog of goods that is yet to go out into the market. So that said, now how does human resource planning get into all this? Now we've talked about productivity. Based on this example, we use it to assess productivity. We've also talked about the based on the requirement that we need for the job to be effectively done. Now let's say that what we have is, let's consider human resource that is the human resource planning in all this. So now we're not waiting until the factory is properly set up. Now, before the factory is set up or the factory is still in process, being processed, So we are not waiting until the factory is fully functional before we now bring in those salespeople or before we now bring in the factory. So all these salespeople are there. Now, why is human resource important? Human resource planning important here. Take for instance that we have said, okay, let us finish setting up the factory. So we finish setting up the factory first. Then will now take some time to get the machine started. The machine is now running. If the machine is running, we need people to manage the machine, right? If not, there's going to be chaos. Now, if the people who are managing this, we just bring in the factory people and they are working in the machine, they stack it at the end of the day, and we don't have the sales people to move those products. Now, what will happen is that we'll have a lot of goods in the warehouse that is yet to be moved, and at the end of the day, we'll need to shut down the machine so that it does not continue the production. That's a continuous production since it's not doing a batch production. So then what means is that we'll shut down the machine. Meaning, if we're going to start the machine again, it requires another form of maintenance to start. So there's a cost there. Now, in order to avoid all this, that's where the planning comes in. So, at what stage are we going to need this person, right? At what stage are we going to need the salespeople, the packers, the this, that? So, we'll begin to. That's where planning comes in. We plan and we ensure that the right people come in at the right time. So now, it's not because now let's say that the factory is still being built. When I say okay, so because we don't want to be cut off. So we'll just go and employ first. Let's employ people, and at the end of the day, let them just stay and be redundant. Who will pay them? They will go else. If for instance that we even employ them in the first place, that it means that the auction is paying them for doing nothing because the factory is yet to be set up. Now, and if the factory is yet to be set up, if the auction keeps paying them, and or if the auction says no, we're not paying them until the factory is fully set up and they start working, they're not going to sit down and be waiting until the factory is set up before they start working. When they have offers elsewhere, they will move. So that is the issue. So you see, what the human resource planning does from the definition that we have is that it takes a look at what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, who needs to do it, right? And at what time will these people come in so that every we have proper synergy of all of both processes and of all resources that are required, both material and human resources, right? This is exactly what the human resource planning does. Okay, I think I've spoken to an extent on that. So let's consider other form of importance. So we say human resource that it promotes results that favors both the organization and the individual. So now in planning, from all this that I've even said, it is very clear that the auction knows what to expect and the people know what to expect. So you're not pushing people beyond their capacity, right? Such that they now bulk or break under the load. And the organization does not expect so much, such that at the end of the day, it has to lose its workforce or the machineries in the auction has to be shut down. So there's a proper planning, right? So that's what we're talking about. That proper planning is what we're talking about, the human resource planning, where we are ensuring that the required manpower is made available at the time it is needed, as at when due, as when it is needed as well. Okay, then say that it prevents the disruption of workflow, as well as lower productivity and poor job satisfaction. So with human resource management, of course, there will be no need to shut down. There will be no need to disrupt the workflow or production flow. Then there will be no need also to say that the people are not that they are they're not productive or underproductive. So because we know that this is what you're supposed to deliver within an hour. So we expect you to deliver it within an hour, right? So, and once person does it, you cannot accuse them of being unproductive. They are doing exactly what they've been asked to do. Then, and the people knowing exactly what, take for instance, I have a target of loading 200 cartons per hour. I feel fulfilled, right? Because I know that at 200, I'm loading it and it's not like it is so draining. I can load the 200 cartons and so I'm happy with it, right? I get that satisfaction because I'm able to consistently meet it. Now, take for instance that instead of the 200 per hour, what I'm able to do is like 100 in an hour or 150 in an hour. If I continue with it by 5 p.m. when I'm supposed to be um, closing my shift so that other shift people will take over, I'll find out that I still have a lot of in order to meet up because if I'm loading 2 per hour and I have 8 hours to work, so it means that 200 times 8, that's 1,600, right? 1,600. and all I have done so far have just been 800. So I still have additional 800. So you can imagine when others are going by 5 p.m., I still have to stay because if within 8 hours I just only, that means I need additional 8 hours, 16 hours. I would definitely need to sleep over in the factory in order to meet up. So you see where it start affecting it start affecting me. So I can't perform. I'm not happy with the job. So now there's job that I'm not satisfied with the job. I'm not happy again with the job and the rest of that. Because why? I feel that I'm not fit for the job. I'm not the right person for the job because I can't meet up. So these are the issues with staffing. But with human resource planning, we know exactly the kind of person that is required for this job role. Now, still in that line, now what does it mean? As a human resource person, when we are describing the requirements for this job role for the packers, we want people who are fit, right? People who are fit, who can think, and who are strong, right? They are when we talk about fit, that they are strong. It's not they are fit. It's not like they are big or they are. We want people who are strong, who are helpful, can withstand pressure. You can keep bending and stacking, bending and stacking, bending and stacking, bending and stacking, bending and so for that long hour. So it's not like you just do for 1 hour and you just breathe and the person is breathing and breathing so hard. We don't want such a person. The second, we don't want somebody that's asthmatic, right? So it means these are some things that we're going to be looking into. We don't want to get someone that under the weight of the weight of the work, they get they have more health issues or health challenges or crisis, and the whole place will start saying that somebody collapsed while working or somebody collapsed in the factory area. Then second, we don't want somebody that is susceptible to smell. Maybe it's some chemicals that are used for the production, so they have issues with the smell and it irritates them or they throw up and so things like that. These are some things allergies. These are some things that are going to be taken into consideration before. So that's human resource planning in detail. So let's go ahead to talk about the next one. It says to maximize the utilization of human resources, reduce employee turnover, and as well as absenteeism. So, of course, let me just speak more on that absenteeism. If I work effectively well and within timeline, so and I go home when I'm supposed to go home, I close by 5. I'm able to finish my job by 5. I close. I have enough time to go rest, recuperate, and prepare for tomorrow's work. So, but if I don't have enough time, take for instance, my mate closed by 5 and I have to do extra work because I did not finish what I was supposed to do before 5 p.m. I have to work until 11. So it means I'll be getting home maybe around 1 a.m. But when am I going to come and resume by 8 a.m.? Is I'll get home, prepare and dress. I'll just come and resume by 8. So you see, by the time I would do that for consecutively like 1 week or 2 weeks, there's going to be possible breakdown and person will not come to work for this. Person is overstressed and needs to visit use their HM and the rest of that. So these are the issues. So that human resource planning helps to solve. Then we'll go ahead to also talk that it helps the management to have the right number of people. We've talked over this before. I think that said, we've discussed so much at length with regards to the importance of human resource planning. Let's go ahead to talk about the objective and purpose of human resource planning. So, the objective, realizing organizational goals in order to achieve the goals for it, be it expansion or be it growth, actualization. It means that we have to properly forecast what is required. We have to properly we'll have to come to the conclusion of what's required, the manpower that is required for that growth. Take, for instance, we want to expand. Maybe we currently have a factory in Lagos, but we want to now have another factory in Kano, another factory, let's say, in Anambra. So now, by doing that, if we're going to put that together, what workforce and what size of factory are we looking into? Are we looking to see if it is still the same size that we have in Lagos? I want to replicate in the two new locations. It means now the workforce size is, let's say the current workforce size that we have here is 120. So it means that we're going to be having additional 120 in those places. Now, but if the factory size needs to be bigger and maybe based on the machines that or more machines are to be brought in or whatever it is that so based on what the management wants to do, they will determine the number of people that is required. So these are the objective and purposes of human resource plan. Then forecasting as well. So if we're going to be needing people, let's take for instance that I must say factory. We need to produce more because we're heading to this festive season, right? Now we need to produce, make more production. So now But do we need to make them the it doesn't mean that we need to now go and hire more people. It's just festive season, and by December, it's going to be the festive season will be over. So now, what are we now going to do by that time? If um okay, so okay, please before I even continue with this, please let me know if you can still hear me while I'm talking, or if you're still having connectivity issues. Please, can you still hear me? I want to know that you can hear me. Please just type it now. If you can hear me and if the visuals is okay, because I see someone still talking about connectivity issues again. One Alison. So please let me be certain that you can hear me and as well as that you carried along. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that confirmation. Okay, so I'll just go. So I would rather say, Alison, please, maybe you have to restart your device, or you have to either you restart your device or turn off and turn on your data afresh, so that maybe the data connection will be much more better. I think that is that. I'm talking to Alison Victoria. Please, maybe you can just try that. Apologies for the experiences you had with the network. Okay. So now, let me just go ahead with what I was saying earlier. So we're having a conversation on human resource planning with regards to the festive season now. So with regards to forecasting, so I was using the festive season as an example. Now we have the festive season, right? So and we need to scale up production. For currently doing 24,000, and the demand in the festive season usually spikes up to 40,000. So does it mean that remember we'll say, oh, the workforce that we need is just only 5 packers so that they can handle 200 per hour. So now in doing that, what are we now going to do? So we say, okay, are we going to employ more people? If we employ more people, remember that human resources is about planning. So don't just employ people only to by January to sack them. No, that's going to be an issue, right? So now that brings us to the option of saying, okay, those who are readily fit and who can do additional overtime, maybe additional like 2 hours overtime maximum. Maybe we can talk to the current workforce and say if you can do an overtime maximum of 2 hours, that's what each person can do. Then they can come. Then we can also say, okay, if you have friends who might want to work part time during the festive season, a lot of us while growing up, we had experiences maybe visiting factories to just go and help them run some little gigs and just which are seasonal, maybe like for 2 or 3 months. So that these things play out. So these are people that can be used during that particular. These are kind of workforce that can be used during that or they're applicable. So don't go and hire people on a full-time basis only to dislodge them by the time because by January they'll be redundant. We'll return back to a normal 24,000, right? So why are you going to go and hire people? Because at this time, some of them might be changing jobs, some of them might be switching from what they're currently doing only to come and get disappointed. It doesn't make any sense and it's not going to give the brand a good image. So that's where human resource planning comes in. And so we see that and think, what better alternative or what better ways can we handle the current spike in need that that's what we currently need with regards to human resource management. I think that's it. Let's go ahead. So it promotes change management, of course. When it promotes change management in case we need to make changes to maybe either transition from people to machines or from people to people to for or more machines to lesser machines to more people. Maybe whichever strategy it is that needs to be deployed. Okay, then promoting employee with performance informations, right? So we can have so employees can know what is expected of them. For instance, if I know that I'm meeting my 200 targets that is per hour, and I'm meeting my 1,600 every day, and like it's not affecting what I'm doing, it's not affecting my so like I'm fulfilled. By the time I'm closing for the day, I'm happy because I know that this is what I was employed for and I am doing it. I am meeting. So nobody can come and tell me, or my supervisor cannot come and just shout at me or do anything with me because I know that at least I am meeting my. So there's no basis to come and do anything or do anyhow within the workplace. So that's why employee they have ground or they're more they like they feel more at ease or at more at home. Okay, so now that's it. Utilize human resource planning in order to identify surplus. So, for instance, we know where, based on that planning, we know currently where we are having people overstaffed, right? and we can move them to a department where they are required. Not we'll just have everybody clogged in one place, and at the end of the day, the manpower there is just redundant. So now determining the level of recruitment, training, and estimates or data to estimate the cost. Of course, that's what human resource. So if we're going to be needing 20 new people, we know that this is 20 people that we will be needing. How much does it require to acquire these 20 new people? So it is very clear. So we acquire them, and they are only that it has been sorted. Then in order to keep them, so we know that this additional cost of, so if we're bringing them on a permanent basis, as a full-time basis and permanent basis, so it means that we know that on a monthly basis, this is how much that is the overhead. In order to maintain this more 20 people that we're bringing in, this is what it is going to be. So the management is very much kept, so they know and they sign off on it. Now, and also finally on the list, so it helps with controlling cost. The cost aspect of human resource, of course, like that's just I just talked about now, and the policies to guiding that workforce. Okay, now that said, let's go ahead to talk about the factors affecting and or influencing human resource planning. One is technology. When I was discussing about the importance, I said something about more machines, less people, or less machine, more people. Technology can get that done, right? So what people are doing, there's certain things that people do that technologies will do better, and there's things that people that technologies are doing that people can do much more better. So that's it. All depends on based on what the organization wants to achieve per time. Then also the job analysis, the description, specification, like we talked about, the level of economic development also can determine this. It's more like external issues. Then talk about business environment and factors. So, but when talking about level of economic development that can affect human resource planning, like for instance, let's say in the economy that we the now labor labor acquisition, let's say in a place like the US, and labor acquisition in Nigeria will not be the same. Of course, if you're going to acquire labor in the US, to cost you more. If you're going to acquire labor here in Africa or in Nigeria, it will cost you less compared to the US, right? Because there's a difference in the economy. So that's just what we're talking about. And the business factor, the environment, there's business environmental factor, the trade union influence, of course. If there's a the trade union that's we're talking about trade union more like the industry where you have pengas and the rest, where they will say all their members, this is the list that you can pay them and the rest of that. So those kind of things. Then that is the company production and operation policy can come in handy to influence human resource planning, like we talked about there. Then we'll say human resource policies of the organization that establish policies by the organization. Then also another one is the company policies and strategies, government policies with regards to labor, right? So of course, now this let me just focus on this last one. Now, the government policies. Now, government is currently saying that there is a minimum wage that can pay. So no, the company is not expected to pay anything less than what government, and that's what the government have approved that they are going to be paying to their workforce. So that's where how government policies can also affect that's human resource planning. Okay, now, if I will give you another example with regards to that human resource planning, take for instance that a factory is practically planning, or maybe they are planning for to hire 100 staff or 1,000 staff, plus staffs, right? Before there was an implementation of the new minimum wage. So now, and the planning based on I think it was currently at 30,000, thereabouts of 30,000 before it was moved to 70,000. So if they were planning with that 30,000 and they reached and said they can be able to do up to 1,000 workforce, right, for the floor guys. I said, okay, now that the government has now required that the new minimum wage is now 70,000, you see that the organization will now have to replan with regards to the that's why where governments come in, of course, sometimes they give them some kind of subsidies to ensure that they don't have to take, for instance, if they have already employed these 1,000 people. So it's going to be an issue, right? For instance, that's where companies come in, and at the end of the day, start hearing about retrenchment and downsizing because they already plan based on what they have, what based on their revenue, they plan this the capacity of what they require and what they can do. So if the government now increases the wage from 30 to 70,000, So that's more like over, I think more like 133% over. So they can't be able to do it. So it means they're going to have to downsize by either half or even. So that's in order to stay afloat. So that's where what some decisions do, because now it has impacted them. So it's definitely going to impact their bottom line as well. So that's where how it may impact it. Okay, now that said, let's just quickly go ahead and talk about the steps in human resource planning. So, human resource planning, one of the steps is to analyze organizational plan and objective. So, with based on human resource planning, we can be able to say, okay, what does the organization want to achieve in a 1 year time or in 2 years? So that's why the HRM is usually part of the management, right? So based on whatever is decided, if the management says this is our new projection, this is our new goal in the next 5 years. So in the next 5 years, so we can now break them down. So what is the roadmap? We must have a 1 year plan, a 2 year plan, 3 year, and a 5 year plan. So in that, so in a 1 year plan, we can now break down the 1 year plan into a monthly plan. What is to be achieved in each month? So if we say okay, this is to be achieved in each month, do we have to deliver that within within that timeline? So now, and when we talk about do we have the required workforce, we're not just talking about the numbers. We talk about the right kind of people. Now, take for instance, if the organization is saying, okay, we want to, this is what we want to do. We want to go. Maybe they were into that. They are still we're still using the same example of the factory. So now, but they want to expand more. So now it means okay, they're going to be acquiring new trucks to ensure faster delivery to the distributors. Then they want to also expand into more states, not necessarily factories. Now they've already have factories in let's say in Kano and also in Anambra. So, but they want to now have offices in other states, that in all the 36 states of the country in their 5 year plan. But let's say in 3 years plan, they hope to have been able to reach up to 20 states. So, but in the 1 year plan, they want to be able to have reached up to 5 states, right? So, if in 5 states there, and 1 year is 5, the next year should be they are projecting to be at 12, and by the third year they're projecting to be at 20, and by the 50 they're projecting to be at 36. So in that projection, what does it mean? So at 5, so what states are we looking at? Okay, we currently have Lagos, we're having and we're having Kano. So what additional states, let's say Abuja, Rivers, are to be brought into the equation? So in that, we know, okay, we're going to be requiring workforce since it's just the offices we want to have there. So what does it practically mean? You mean we're going to have more workforce? What people do we require there? Are we going to be needing factory people there? No, because it's offices. We don't need factory people in those two locations, Abuja and Rivers. People that are going to be needing are more like operations people, right? And operations and business development people. These are the kind of people that we want there, possibly maybe like an accountant and as well as sales business development people, right? In those locations. So that's where human resource comes by analyzing the object. So we know the kind of workforce that is required and in what number do we require them? Where do we require? What skill level is required as well? So these are the things. Then now let's say for instance, I want to also add digital marketers to it. So now it means do we have the do are they do that means we need workforces that are trained to execute that effectively. Now take for instance, we are saying okay, now we also want to ensure that we have an e-commerce platform and we can also be selling online instead of also that apart from the offline distribution, we want to also have online distribution. So it means that we start working towards a technology driven operations, right? So by doing that, we are going to say, okay, we'll need an IT team. We'll set up an IT team that will effectively manage sales or distribution um, using technology. So that is another side of it. So with based on the plan and the projection or the objective of an organization, the human resource management can be able to execute that. So the steps in human resource planning is more like one of the steps is analyzing organizational plan. So they will analyze the plan and project. So now in the second one is once they have finished analyzing, the next thing to do is to forecast the demand of the required manpower. I just discussed that in details already. So once there's proper analysis, we know exactly what we require and where we require them, right? Like I was saying earlier, that we don't need the IT team in maybe possibly in the Abuja, in the Anambra and in the Kano factory, because they are just factories. These are places where we do the production. But what we require, we need the drivers, the truck drivers, we need the storekeepers in those places. These are what we require in places like that, right? So, but in those places where we just have warehouses and stores, like in Abuja and Rivers, but we need a different team of people there. So these are the kind. That's what human resource does. Then there's an estimation, or there's an estimation gap when we are going to need them and the rest of that. I made mention of um, the like seasons, right? Seasons and how seasons can affect production. So that is another example of that. Then talk about that is matching the demand and supply. So in a nutshell, the steps that we have listed now is to analyze the objective of the organization, right? Which human resource planning will do. Once it analyzes it, it forecasts the need, what will be required. Then it does an estimate of that manpower gap. Then it goes ahead to now match the demand. So these are the steps to human resource planning. I think that practically helps us to understand what it is. Now let's go ahead to talk about corporate planning and human. That's more like a corporate planning and human resource planning. So human resource planning consists of an integral part of corporate planning. It serves the organizational purpose in more ways than one. For example, it helps the organization to determine recruitment level, like we agreed on, anticipate redundancies, so we can know the people who are working and who are not working, who are wasting time just there and just lounging. Then determine that is the optimum training level, the cost of manpower as well for new projects, assist productivity bargaining, then assess future requirement. That's what human resource planning will do. Capitalize on the strength of their manpower, study the cost of overheads, and value the services that the service functions as well. So it can also help with serving as a base for management and product and development programs. Then it could help to decide certain activities um, that needs to be subcontracted. So it's not everything that the organization does. The ones that to be outsourced, they will do them by themselves. For instance, things that are not required consistently, so they'll just outsource them, and the organization, the vendor takes a responsibility for that. Okay, now time frame in defining the future. Of course, and human resource planning and the future can be classified into three periods. Of course, the short range and the intermediate, the mid range, 2 to 3 years, the long range. Like I was making mention about planning for human resources in like a 1 year to 5 year time, when based on the projection of the organization or based on the objective where they want to be in the next 5 years. So we break it down, we know what we require per time, what we'll be needing at this stage, at this stage, at this stage, at this stage, and they are all implemented based on that. So they are framed or calibrated based on the future demands or based on the future plans of the organization. So now, let's talk about the interest of human resource planning. Of course, we would say that part of the interest of human resource planning is in employment, that's employment and unemployment ratio balance. Of course, um, there's an acute shortage in the variety of skills, because in human resource planning, that's where we get to understand the required skill level for a job or for a particular duty. So we know the required skill level for it, and we get that done. Then technology changes. So with human resource planning, we know, okay, that this particular job, we can use technology to accomplish that role. So we know, okay, or technology is doing this, but this is exactly where human does will require a human effort or will require a human presence there. So that's that. Take for instance, if we have a bakery, so, but we know that okay, people mixing the flour, that we use manpower to mix the flour. The efficiency will not cannot be compared to when we have mixers handle that. That's the automated mixers. When they handle that for us, the automation and the quality of the mixing will be great. The finished product will also be great. So you cannot compare that at all. So where technology can affect that. So by the time there's no how, even if the automation has been running on manual, where the people mix it for a very long time. By the time we say, okay, we want to now expand, there will be need to now deploy technology. So at what range, at what stage do we get to that we need those technology to be deployed? That's where the human resource planning also comes in. Talk about organizational changes, demographic changes, skill shortages. That's see, we can see that there's a shortage of a particular skill. That of course, with human resource management, with human resources, you will get to see that some skills are in abundance, while some skills are actually in shortage, where you have to list and for months you're still searching for that particular skill level that you're looking for. There are some skills that are like that. Then we talk about the legislative controls where we have laws that are guiding certain professions. So not just no Tom, Dick, and Harry can venture into it and just do it because they are passionate about it. A practical example is about the surgeons, right? Nobody will just say, okay, I can butcher this, or I'm good with the abattoir, and you want to just go. So abattoir is not the same thing as going for surgery, becoming a surgeon. So they are two different things. Exactly. So somebody says I'm very passionate about people. Because I'm passionate about people's health and the rest of that, or because I've done herbal activities, maybe like I can mix herbal concoctions for a very long. I can now function as a pharmacist. I can now prescribe so there are some legal controls with that. So even as human resource people, so even whatever we're doing, we still have to pay close attention to the legal controls because if we work in a hospital that we are short staffed or because we have a lot of migrations of doctors outside does not mean we'll now go and get a nurse come and function as a medical doctor because the nurse now have over 25 years working with other doctors or working with other surgeons, right? That does not automatically that's upgrade them to becoming surgeons. Even if they have worked with surgeons, they've seen them do it. In fact, there is every single procedures that because they've been there with them for over 20 years or 25 years, they know how the procedures, but they cannot try it because there is a legal, they don't have the legal backing to engage with that. They don't have that certification to open up people and operate on them, right? So they have to say the thing that they can do is either go and take a course, go back to school, right? And practically understand what they're doing. They are seeing it, knowing how to do. Doesn't mean that you can manage the emergencies that come with it. So this the thing how legal structural frameworks can control human resource planning. So then we'll talk about group that's pressure groups, like we talk like unions, politicians, and the rest of that. Then lead time as well. So these are the practical thing. We'll talk about lead time here. It's just like the necessary selection process, the time required for the selection, training, and as well as development of the employees to ensure that they fit into the role. All these are the key things that we talked about that help with human resource plan or that have interest in human resource plan in such a way that they affect it positively or negatively. I think in that it brings us a summary on that human resource planning by saying that activities of the human resource plan is just an activity of deciding the future um, of workforce in an organization in relation to number, the right type of people that are required for the job that they are supposed to do. Do they have the required training? Are they properly motivated to work? And are they working at the right time, at the right place, in the good working condition? So these are the things that we say that's in a sum that human resource planning is all about. So human resource planning also is a system that enables the management to have the right number and kind of people at the right place and at the right time who can carry out organizational activities that benefit both the people and the organization in itself. Okay, so that said, it practically brings us to an end. Okay, so someone is saying please how many hours is this session? Okay, this session is to last within 1 to 2 hours max. So it's a maximum of 2 hours, but it's just within 1 to 2 hours per session. I'm just replying to you this morning. So that. But let me just quickly go ahead and take on the next part. That's the part 3. So you can just, if you're with the slide, just take on move to the part 3, where I think so. We're talking about the job analysis, the description, the specification, and as well as job design. Okay, so now I'll just go straight into it. What is job analysis, right? So job analysis in itself is a process of studying and collecting information relating to the operational and responsibilities of a specific job. Now, here's the reason why we decided to combine the both. Now, because we are planning, we just considered planning of human resources. We say we're going to be needing this number of people to do this or to do that. Remember when I was giving the factory example, I said, okay, let's say in the Port Harcourt branch, that we're going to be needing storekeepers. We're also going to be needing business development people. So now it means based on that, we can write a proper, we take our pen and our paper and write a proper job description. So the what job analysis does is that it studies, it takes time to study what is being done, how it is done, when it is done, what that is required for that job to be done. So that's what job analysis is in a nutshell. So we sit down, who does this job? How do they do this job? When can it be done? Who is required to do this job? What skill level do they require to do it? What educational level do they require to do this job and to do it effectively well? That's what job analysis does for that guys can do for the HR person, or the role that it plays, right? So now let's go ahead to discuss more. So job analysis also is a systemic procedure to study and obtain detailed information relating to the operation and responsibility of a specific job, how a particular job is operated, or and the responsibilities that are tied to that particular job. So now, the job analysis is revealed by that is a job identification. So in order to put up a job analysis, it means that we should be able to identify the job. So what is job identification? Job identification is just the title and the code of the job. So title where we say, let's say warehouse manager or warehouse officer or storekeeper, right? So that's the title. So you might say ST, right? SK, that's storekeeper. SK, if it is because we have storekeeper one or two storekeepers in each of the location, or maybe we're having three storekeepers in each of the location, and Lagos already has taken 1 to 3. So Kano has taken 4 to 6, Anambra has taken 7 to 9. So it means we're going to have an additional 3 storekeepers in Port Harcourt. It means that it's going to be from 10 to 12. So we're going to be having SK um, 00, SK001, 11, SK10, SK11, SK12. So that's more like the code that we used to understand. Okay, that SK is for store. So for some, they even have some form of ways of identifying, more like we have like your registration number, like when we were in school, and how it identify our departments are this. So it stays straight to the person. Then, but that we're not talking about the staff, not staff ID now. We're just talking about the job code. So, but with that, we know that it is SK. That's for the SK00, whatever it is. So we know okay, that this is what it is as the code number for that particular job. Then, of course, if there's a different one, maybe has to do with proper maybe industrial jobs and the rest of that. So we have some industry attachments to the code. Then let's go ahead to talk about the job characteristics, the location. So the job characteristics talks about the location, the physical settings, the supervision, as well as the union jurisdiction, the hazards that require and the discomfort. So the job characteristics helps us to understand the location of the job. Where is the job located? Right? We also talk about the physical settings, the supervision, the jurisdiction, and as well as the hazards and discomforts located. Then routine is another one, the routine task and responsibilities. So now job analysis helps us to understand this thing, is it done every day, or is it done every day, or is done once a week? Is it a job that needs to be done? So for instance, now if it's a machine, that this machine needs to be the oil needs to be changed daily, or oil needs to be changed once a week. So we know okay that a crane manager or a crane operator should know that once every week they need to either change the oil, or once a month they change the oil. So it all depends on or they check the check the pneumatics and the rest of that. So they do perform certain checks. Maybe it's weekly or daily. It has to maybe daily, weekly, or monthly. It all depends on the frequency of it. Then we'll go ahead to talk about the material that is required, and that's material and equipment that is required to execute that job role effectively well. Now, take for instance that we're still talking on the crane. So in order to conduct these checks, or to check the pneumatic pressures and the rest of that. So we need some pressure machines. We need some machines or some tools for that for those duties to be effectively executed. So that's what um, job analysis does. It helps us to also understand if the quality or the kind of material that is required to effectively do the job. Then how to perform the job as well. So job analysis helps with that. Go ahead to say about personal attributes required. There's the kind of person that we're looking for, the physical strength. Is it an apprentice that we're looking for? Is going to be a training, and is it just based on the physical demands of the job role, the mental capacity or capability that is required for that job role as well. Then that is that. Go ahead to talk about the job relationship, more like the departments that this job role falls under, the opportunities and the advancements that are required, as career progression, the patterns of promotion, then the external cooperation that is required, essential cooperation that is required, as well as the of um, direction or leadership of the job. So these things help with the job in itself. Okay, so now please, your questions, I think it's better we take them all together when they, okay, so, okay, I think I'll take all the questions together. Please just put your questions together, but I think we'll take all of them together once at a time, please. Okay, so that we don't get a little bit carried away from the main thing that we are discussing. Just put your questions together. I will respond to each of them. Now, let's talk about the sources of job analysis. One of them is from the employees who do the job. So the HR person works to those posts to study how the job is done, stays with them, sees how the job is done, so they take proper notes about how the job is done and get all the details that are there. Then from supervisors, we will get details from the supervisors. So the supervisors of those jobs will write, supervisors or the team leads or the project managers of those roles will draft details about that job. Then from external sources and independent observers as well can help with such. Then the method of job analysis, of course, job analysis could be through interviews. We can analyze those the job function that is being done by each group based on interview. So we interview the employers or the workforce that are on that role. So we interview them so that they answer relevant questions and we can get information about the job from there. Then we use questionnaires to do that. That's which are shared among the job builders. Then go ahead and talk about the personal observation and also the consulting on a daily basis. Okay, that said, let's go ahead to talk about um, the uses and purpose of job analysis. Okay, so because we want to analyze this job. Remember, I talked about analyzing the job is about understanding what are they even doing there, what do they require, who is required to do that job, right? Then at what time is it supposed to be done? What materials or what equipment do they require to do that effectively well? These are what job analysis is all about. So now, by that, what this helps us to understand the purpose, the actual purpose of job analysis. So it means that from job analysis, we can effectively plan, we can effectively handle human resource planning. So one of the purpose or the uses of job analysis is for human resource planning. That is one. Then two is for recruitment. So recruitment and selection. So by from job analysis, we understand the kind of person that should be recruited in the first place. So we don't want to recruit just because maybe the person say I can do the job. We want that job analysis help us to know, can they properly assess, can they properly do the job? Take for instance those who want to enroll into the military or into the police academy, into the force academy. So they go through rigorous training, those rigorous exercise and training would automatically weed out people who are not strong enough or physically fit for the job. The first job is not just it's not a play job. It's a job that requires strength. It's a job that requires tenacity, that requires endurance. So the exercises that they put together would make those who are not fit enough to just stay away. Of course, even after they have, because they go through medicals, go through a whole lot of before they even join the first instance, before they even join the training or they join that the advanced vetting process, which is the exercise, the drills that they go for. So now that drill is now more like the upper vetting stage where I can do this, I can do that. Yes, you've got the medical screening, the heart is okay, a lot of things are okay, so they can be able to function. Now, oh yeah, the other things are now being tested that are being put to test, and you can say they can properly do that. So don't just want to go and recruit people, and at the end of the day, cannot function on the road. That's okay. So we'll talk about wage and salary administration. So by job analysis, we can say, okay, this particular person, since they do this job, so they can effectively, we know, okay, what is the adequate compensation for them? This is the kind of thing that they go through. This is the kind of thing they have to deal with, right? So, like, they will have the right and adequate compensation for them. Then it also helps with the job evaluation. Of course, you can properly evaluate a job and say, okay, you're doing well or you're not doing well. Then we can do training and development. We can train people who are not doing well. Then we can also manage performance and conduct an appraisal on people's performance. And and at the end of the day, we can plan for health and safety. Because if we know that this particular job requires the use of some kind of chemicals. So it means they are going to provide some safety gears for people to work effectively on those roles. So that said brings us to goes on that. Let's move on to talk about job description. Now that we have discussed on job analysis, we are going to move on to job description to understand what job description means because we have analyzed the job. Now let us now describe the job, right? We'll write details of the job. What we see on job boards, when we go to job boards to make applications or to look out for available jobs, we see job descriptions there. And with those jobs, so let's go ahead to consider what job description is. So from saying we say job description is a written record of the duties and responsibility and requirements of a job, right? So now from analysis, we analyze the details of the job, and from there we'll be able to deduce and describe this job. So if you're applying to be or to be considered for this job role, now this is what is expected of you. This is what you are going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. That is the responsibilities. Then, to do this job effectively well, we need you to be a graduate of XYZ. Then we also a graduate and hold your BSc in XYZ. Then we also need you to have this level of experience, let's say a minimum of 3 years experience to do this job effectively well. Then we also say we'll need you to be able to use a computer or to be able to do this or to be able to do that. These are where requirements now comes in with training requirements and as well as possibly maybe membership requirements, affiliation requirements, and the rest of that. So that is job description. So what we see on job board is practically job description, where they write details about the job, what the person that is coming in is meant to do. Then content of the job description will practically contain or will practically be the duties, that's the job duties of the person, that's the working condition as well, right? So we know, okay, this is what the person is going to be doing on a daily basis, and this is what the working condition is going to be. The job identification, so we can probably know, okay, that this job is in the business development department, or this job is in the marketing department, or this job is in the accounting department. This job is in the IT department, and so forth and so on. Then we go ahead to talk about job identification, then relationship with others. So we know, okay, these are the superiors, or this is more like a reporting line. This is who to report on this job, or who's going to be supervising the job. So job description provides that. Then there's a summary on the job, more like a summary about the job, who practically fits into this job role. Like most people do it as like an about this job. So they will give a rough conclusion, a rough summary about the job, the kind of person that they are looking for, the organization you are coming to work for, what is expected of you. So they give a summary of that and about of the job, right? That's that done. Finally, on the list of the things that needs to be on job description is the to be supervised by whom, or to provide supervision. That's who's to provide supervision for a particular job. Reporting to? Are they reporting to the manager, or are they reporting to their unit leads, their team leads, and the rest of that? So job description takes into consideration all that. Okay, that said, it brings us to job specification, right? So job specification, what exactly would that be? So now we have talked about job analysis. We've talked about job um, description. I want us to now talk about job specification. So job specification is a standard of personnel, is a standard of personnel that is required. It designates human quality required as a necessity to properly perform on a given job. So to specific, we are making it specific for us. Some people make it as so it's not like just only about the requirement. There is more. We're talking about so that combination of the academic qualification, the experience that is required, the age, gender. Of course, there's some jobs you say, oh, I say gender, maybe are they gender bias? There are some jobs that it would that's is better suited for men or better suited for women. Take for instance, if let's say um, we want people that are going to be offloading, or loading on. You're not using the crane, or people who are going to be offloading from that is from the truck into the warehouse. We're not going to say we want females to come and do that. We don't want them to work on that. So we're saying that this job is better suited for me, and not just any form of man. But job specification help us to understand. So in this place now, we're not going to be looking for people with BS. We're looking for people who have that physical strength and that stamina to withstand. So we're not considering BSc here. We're not considering that kind of because what they are doing is about physical strength and not a mental strength. So there will be no need the quality of training. No, what we require is have you worked in a warehouse before? Can you offload and offload? We look at their stature, we look at their strengths. We see the toughness in them already, and we put them to test. Maybe like we see the way that they are very much agile to load and by some questions we know okay that and actually but not just by some questions, and with some questions we know that they can easily work in this role. Of course, it's not just only about the physical stamina, and not people also want people who can use their senses very well, because if you have all the stamina and you cannot coordinate very well, then there's an issue, because while you're offloading it and you're moving it to a place where you have to now move it again. So that's going to be like a double work. So want people who can work smartly, who knows, okay, once you're offloading it from the truck, move it to XYZ warehouse. Don't move it to don't move it to A warehouse. Move it to X warehouse. So these are the kind of things that we're talking about. So now the job specification in a nutshell. What is it if we say it? So we say that the job specification aims to describe the standard of personnel, or the kind of person that is required to function in this capacity. Now, it designated human quality, right? So I just made mention about physical strength, physique, demeanor, like different kind of things. So the kind of person that we want for this job, that's where job specification comes in. So now it guides the hiring and the job evaluation in order to understand the human qualifications that are required for the role. So job specification relates to the following: physical characteristics, physical attributes, right? Physical characteristics and attributes. I just made mention about that, like the height, weight, body size, vision, voice, poise, eyes, and the rest of that. So, like these are the places where, and I also made a mention about the military or the force. When you want to join the force, there are a lot of things that they want to do. They want that you have the height, you have the structure, you can be able to function effectively well there. There are some paramilitaries you want to join, like you see, before you join them, they want to assess all these things to put together. Now let's I also made mention about the warehouse, that's more like the warehouse model with it. So I think that said, we've discussed so much about the physical characteristics. Now let's talk about the psychological characteristics with regards to job specification. So the psychological characteristics would include ingenuity, judgment, right? Resourcefulness, analytical ability to analyze situation and to make mental concentration. Okay, can they focus? Can they work effectively well? Now, take for instance that we want someone that can work maybe like people who can analyze some issues or can analyze data and come up with critical decisions, right? So we don't just, it's not like you need, it's not only a BSc that is required. We want people who can think deeply, who can concentrate and see what others are not seeing. So you're looking at these figures or you have all this big data right here. So but you can see things that other people are not seeing. Deep thinkers, right? People who can analyze things, analyze data, they see trend, they can see patterns from data, but other people are just seeing numbers, seeing data. That's all that they can see. But another person is seeing opportunities. Another person is seeing can be able to focus into the future and say, okay, if we do this, based on this trend, X trend, Y trend, B trend, A trend. I think with this pattern, we can be able to achieve this in the future. So this is where a thinker comes. Someone that's political with that. So if the job requires somebody like that, so we want to pay close attention to that kind of characteristics with regards to it. So that's that. Now let's talk about another the third characteristics, which is personal characteristics. So now personal characteristics now talks about personal appearance, emotional stability, right? Aggressiveness, submissiveness, extroversion or introversion, leadership. People who are stable, who can work on the job, right? Who are not who are not aggressive or overly aggressive and the rest of that. So these are the kind of things that we want to look. So if the job is something that requires someone that's aggressive, there are some jobs that require someone that's aggressive and one that does not require someone that's aggressive. So it all depends on the one that the job requires. Then amongst that is also responsibilities, right? So the responsibilities such as supervision of orders, responsibility for production, process equipment, safety. So now, so the person do they have a responsibility characteristics, ability to like more like an accountability characteristics. So they take responsibility for others, they can take responsibility for people. So that's leadership. That's leadership there. So if they can take responsibility for themselves and for the people, not necessarily only for the people, then for machines, for the equipment, for the systems, for the processes, for the policies that have been implemented. That's leadership there. You are seeing a team lead or so that meaning that we're talking about a team lead or we're talking about a supervisor here. So because if you can take responsibility for yourself and for others, it practically means that's leadership there. So meaning if we're going to be looking for a leader, we want somebody also who can take responsibility. Then five on it, it says other features such as demography, nature, age, education, gender, experience, language, abilities, etc. Okay, so now this is very, very important because, like I just made mention about the offloaders, people who offload into the warehouse. It means we will require this more like a masculine role. So we don't just want people who can function in that. We don't want just want to take people because they can function, but we want people who can effectively deliver on the role. Okay, I think that says we've discussed extensively on that. So thus far, we've discussed on the job analysis, talked about job description. We just concluded with job specification. So now let's talk about job design, which is more like the concluding part of this section. So job design, what exactly is it? So job design in itself is a process of deciding the content of a job, its duties, the responsibility, method of carrying out the job, and the relationship that should exist between the job holder and the supervisor, superiors, subordinates, colleagues, and the rest of that. So, job design is just deliberate and systematic because it attempts to structure the technical and social aspects of the work, yeah, in order to improve efficiency or improve efficiency and job satisfaction. So now, job design now is now taking into consideration structure, taking into consideration the technical and social aspects of a job. That's what job design comes. So it's systematic, right? It's deliberate. So it takes into consideration the technical aspect and as well as the social aspect of the job. Okay, you can do this job effectively well. But we also want somebody who is also a relationship builder, who can communicate, who can manage relationship with customers, right? Or manage a relationship with other people, or can effectively relate well with their colleagues. So these are the things that job design helps us to also accomplish. So now let's talk more on that. So we'll talk about the technique, that's the techniques of job design. So the main approach to job design, of course, includes classical approach or behavioral approach. So it's classical approach, which was designed or developed by Taylor. His and his associates, of course, they focus more on planning, standardizing, and as well as improving human effort at the operative level in order to maximize productivity. So now, based on the operative level, when we discussed about human resource, we talked about human resource management in the introduction. We made mention of that. So now, the classical approach of job design, this size of we would like to focus or focuses on planning, standardizing, and improving human efforts. Right. So that's their focus. Why for behavioral approach? So behavioral approach focuses on or search on of alternative ways of designing job so that to avoid dysfunctional consequences or standardization or simplification. So now it means with classical approach, people work like robots, right? Just follow the process, the procedure, and deliver. Why the behavioral approach just says, okay, what other ways can we reinvent? Can we not just reinvent the wheel? Can we work on the role and still derive job satisfaction and at the end of the day still accomplish goals? So this is what job design. What's the difference between the classical approach or the behavioral approach? The classical approach focuses on the templates. Just follow the template. Just do it like that, right? Consistently. Why behavioral approach practically says, let's study other method. This job can be done and done very well, or even done even better, right? So that's what the behavioral and the difference between the behavioral and the classical approach with regards to job design. So, and it brings us to the summary. So, in a nutshell, we talk about that the process of studying and collecting information with regards to the operations and responsibilities of a job is what we refer to as the job planning. Job analysis, sorry. So job analysis helps us to gather information, analyze those information to understand the operations and to understand the responsibilities associated to the job or to the role. So job analysis also is a systemic procedure to study and obtain detailed information which is relating to a specific job and its responsibilities. So it brings us to a close thus far on what we've discussed with regards to human resource planning. So I think that's that. Let's go ahead to take the question. So we've discussed at length. So thus far we've discussed about human resource planning, and we considered job analysis, job description, job description, job specification, and job design. Please let me have your questions now. So you can take the questions now, and we can close the session. Remember, pick the max so that we can close session in 1 hour 30 minutes. That's the goal for class. So let's have the question. I can drop your questions at the session. Okay. If someone is saying that's Victoria, it says are we going to be examined on the course? Yes, there's going to be a learning assessment. There's going to be a learning assessment, Alison. So yes, your question that based on your question, yes, there's going to be a learning assessment. That's why you have the learning material shared with you. So I think that we have the learning material, so you can just take it based on all that we've discussed thus far. You can go through the learning material as well. Okay, and if you do have questions during the course of taking the material, that's studying the material, if you have other that's questions on the previous classes that we have had, you can always ask questions in like tomorrow's class. Take for instance what to discuss yesterday, what to discuss today. If you come up with questions, we can always take that in a new class like tomorrow. So that is that until then the class is exhausted. I think that is that. Okay, so I think there are no questions thus far. And since there are no questions, so I just have to bring the class to a close. So so I want to reconfirm again that there are no questions so that we can just end this session because we are done with all the questions for this. Um, okay, so no question yet at this time. So and since that is so, so we're going to be ending the class in time. Okay, so that said, the learning for tomorrow will still be shared by same time tomorrow. That's why I'm still starting the learning, continue from where we stopped. So tomorrow we're going to be considering recruitment selection and onboarding. That's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. So I think that's it. So it's been awesome training with you today. Enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you.